Just before the recent update to the Four Emperors, most people would probably agree that Shanks and Kaido were the strongest of the Yonko. Despite Big Mom being a rival to Kaido and Blackbeard having two of the strongest Delver abilities and still growing in power, the way Kaido and Shanks have been portrayed as of this recording has been like no other. Oda might have even thought about how this matchup would go, especially considering that Shanks and Kaido did face off just before the events of the Marineford War. Kaido wanted to kill Whitebeard and Shanks stopped him from interfering with the war. However, with how quickly that situation ended and the redhead pirates appearing at Marineford the next day with no injuries, there's just no way that they had a full-blown fight outside of just a clash or two. So since this matchup did have a narrative behind it, I think it's fitting to make a matchup out of it. But before we delve into it though, if you're new to the channel or you like content like this, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. As always, your support is much appreciated. First of all, for Kaido and Shanks' abilities, they can both use all three applications of Haki and the advanced applications for each one of them. As well as all three types of Haki, Kaido is the user of the mythical dragon Zoan fruit, which boosts all stats. It also granted extremely tough dragon skills for defense, which requires certain powers in order to overcome it, as well as wind and fire abilities as well. Shanks on the other hand remains the only emperor ever to not be a Dolphin user, so his proficiency in Haki is his calling card. In fact, he's the only confirmed user of this observation Haki killing ability, which is rooted in Conqueror's Haki. This is an ability that Oda hand wrote in the magazine extra for Film Red under Shanks' section. Now I won't pretend to know exactly how this works, but to my understanding, it is an ability to affect another's use of observation Haki by stunning them with Conqueror's Haki. This ability hasn't actually been done in the manga as of this recording, so I can't say how exactly it would work in this matchup and the limits of this ability. However, that's not the only new thing we learnt about Shanks. The long-awaited answer to how Shanks actually fights has now been revealed in his fight against Kid, and that's the same fighting style as the Pirate King Roger. This just goes to show how highly Oda respects Shanks' stature in the series and the way he wants the audience to see him as the closest person to who Roger was outside of Luffy. Now with their basic abilities out of the way, let's cover their feats and narrative portrayal, starting with Kaido as there's a lot more to cover with him. Before his death, Kaido was known in the world as the strongest creature and pirate in the world. People in the One Piece world say in a one-on-one fight, always bet on Kaido. The meaning of the strongest creature title is something that's often debated. Some think that it means Kaido's the strongest fighter, and others think that the title doesn't account for humans. My interpretation of this title is that Kaido got it due to his seemingly unkillable nature. The main point of Kaido's introduction was that he was almost impossible to kill, which was shown by him falling off the Sky Island, and the narrator mentioned how despite challenging the Yonko and the Marines, no one could kill him. Based on this, it makes sense that people would bet on Kaido in a fight, because how does a man that can't die lose a fight? However, this unkillable image was shattered by Oden, who gave him his trademark scar. The wound Oden left on Kaido was so big that he was still injured for many days after the battle. This isn't to discredit Kaido's title, however the general populace of the One Piece world don't know the full story about Kaido when they formed their opinions about him. That said though, when it comes to on-panel feats, Kaido's feats are arguably the best in the story as of this recording. In Act 1 of Wano, base Kaido was able to blitz and one-shot Gear 4th Luffy, who had just surpassed Katakuri. Even after Luffy learnt advanced armament Haki to the highest level, Kaido still one-shot him although he was in base. When Luffy bloomed his Conqueror's Haki, he surpasses Gear 4th from before in his base form, being able to land stronger attacks without using his gears than the Kong Gatling. Despite that, Kaido still beat Luffy, and up until this point in the raid, Kaido was still suppressing a lot of his power. Kaido went on to fight Yamato, who is another user of advanced Conqueror's Haki, the power that makes you one of the handful of the very strongest in the world. Although Yamato held her own, Kaido was consistently on the winning end in many of the clashes. When it came down to their Thunder Bagua clash, despite Yamato covering herself in an icy armor, she still couldn't block the attack. Although Kaido was serious in trying to take Yamato's life, he still didn't use anywhere close to his full power, as the Thunder Bagua was the strongest attack that he used, and we know that he's got a few more moves that clearly outclass it. Luffy returns to the fight mastering Advanced Conqueror's Haki, which is shown by his ability to split the sky with Kaido. After accepting Luffy as a fighter, Kaido started using his Drunk Dragon Bagua. This fighting style makes Kaido even stronger, and he started strengthening his Haki even more than he had been the entire raid. As the fight went on, Kaido started releasing more and more of his full power. This is shown as he goes toe to toe against Gear 2nd and 3rd Luffy, but when Luffy used Gear 4th, which makes him several times stronger, Kaido started to dominate him. Luffy transforms into Snake Man, which is his fastest form of Gear 4, and although it was too fast for Kaido at first, as soon as Kaido started using Future Sight, the speed became insignificant to him. Kaido literally evaded every single Snake Man strike and counters Luffy, showing that when Kaido uses Future Sight, his speed is amongst the best there is. Luffy then switched to Bounce Man, which is a more durable form of Gear 4 than Snake Man is, and Kaido still almost knocked Luffy out of Gear 4 with a single strike using Thunder Bellow Bagua. Despite CP0's interference in the end, it was very clear that Kaido outclassed this version of Luffy by a sizable margin. This is because Kaido had already taken Luffy's strongest Gear 4th attack and endured it very well, whereas Luffy couldn't do the same with the Thunder Bellow Bagua, meaning had the clash played out with no interference, the result would have been the same and Luffy would have died. It wasn't until Luffy awakened his Devil Fruit that Kaido's full power was actually matched. Luffy's awakening is the mythical Zoan Nika, and although it's not stated to be the strongest fruit, once awakened, it's without a doubt one of the strongest Devil Fruits there are in the story. Nika is literally a One Piece deity known as the Sun God, and Luffy has that ridiculous power. Even with that power though, Kaido still had a couple of moments overwhelming Gear 5 Luffy. Ultimately, Kaido did lose his final Haki clash against Luffy's Bajrang Gun, but there's no shame in losing to a deity in the story. With Kaido out of the way, we can now move on to Shanks. Shanks is yet to have the same spotlight that Kaido had in Wano as of this recording. However, with the little that he has done in the story, he's still been very impressive. Before he lost his arm, Shanks was the rival of Mihawk, who is now regarded as the strongest swordsman in the world, and they used to have legendary daily duels. These duels were so great that it was still fresh in Whitebeard's memory over a decade later. Even with one arm, Shanks' swordsmanship is still so great that it was used as a benchmark to emphasize the level of the world's strongest swordsman. Considering he reached the top of the world with Roger's style, it does make sense that his swordplay would be this great. Shanks for most of the story has mainly been an onlooker on the seas that takes action only when forced to in order to bring balance to the world. When the Gorosei caught word that Shanks plans to meet with Whitebeard, they acknowledged that it could cause a lot of damage, but it doesn't seem like Shanks is the type of guy to seek out world conquest. This is further explained in the Road to Laugh Tale booklet about how the Gorosei see Shanks as threatening when he decides to take action. When Shanks met with Whitebeard, they had an equal clash and split the sky, showcasing his use of Advanced Conqueror's Haki for the first time. The next time Shanks went on the move was at the end of Marineford when he saved Kobe from Akainu by blocking the Magma Punch with his sword. Shanks was willing to fight against the Navy HQ, warlords and the Blackbeard pirates if they were not willing to end the war right then and there. By no means am I suggesting that Shanks and the Redhead pirates could actually beat them, however to even declare that speaks volumes. Shanks would have probably fought alongside the rest of the Whitebeard pirates as well to better their chances, or else they would have been destroyed. Blackbeard, after acquiring the Goro Goro no Mi, said that he felt like he had all the power in the world. He even declared himself to be the strongest in the world and said the new age was his. Whilst fighting Sengoku, Blackbeard even intended on sinking Marineford as well. The thing to note about Blackbeard is that he sometimes overestimates his own abilities and becomes careless, which is the weakness that Whitebeard exposed. Blackbeard even declared himself to be the strongest while fighting against Ace, and we know that in hindsight he wasn't even close. So in Marineford, when Blackbeard was high on his newfound power, it was Shanks that quickly humbled him, likely due to their history, as Blackbeard acknowledged that it was too early for him to fight against the Redhead pirates. It doesn't end there with Shanks, as he displayed one of the most shocking feats in my opinion at the end of the Wano arc against Admiral Greenbull. Greenbull went to Wano to take Luffy's head, but his advance on the Flower Capital was stopped by Shanks' Conqueror's Haki. To truly understand how crazy this was, you need to familiarize yourself with how Conqueror's Haki works. Conqueror's Haki is, as Rady described it, is the power to overwhelm others. The only way to protect oneself from a Conqueror's blast is by having a strong enough willpower. This was demonstrated when Shanks used his Conqueror's Haki on Whitebeard's ship, and the only ones that remained standing were the stronger members. Oda further explains in the SBS that Conqueror's Haki can knock out an opponent if there's an overwhelming gap in power. Green Bull was knocked out by Shanks' Conqueror's Haki, however he was clearly affected to some extent. Green Bull was forced into deforming from his tree-looking form, he screamed, and he was shown rattling. This just goes to show that Shanks didn't hold back either, as he lost control, affecting the weak ones on his crew despite the target only being Green Bull. Not only that, but given the strength of the opponent and the fact that Shanks was mad at what Green Bull was doing, it makes sense that he wouldn't hold back in order to suppress him. All of this is just more of a testament to Shanks' power, that he can affect someone of that caliber whilst not even being on the island. Lastly, Shanks' most recent feat as of this recording was annihilating not only Kid, but Killer 2 with a single attack. It was to be expected that Kid was nowhere near Shanks' caliber, but a one-shot is still impressive considering Big Mom, who shared the same title as Shanks, failed to do so when she fought Kid and Law. Now with all that said, who would actually win if Shanks and Kaido fought to the death? Kaido believed that there was no one in the world capable of defeating him except for Joy Boy. That's why he remained in Wano all this time, expecting Joy Boy to arrive to fight him, and things did turn out the way Kaido believed. Whether Kaido's belief in his own power is true or not, he was never characterized as an arrogant man and even acknowledged when battles would have been disadvantageous for him. He's also not completely ignorant of Shanks' strength, as they had a skirmish before, and he also holds him in very high regard, thinking back to him alongside Oden, Roger, Whitebeard and Rox as amongst the few that can truly fight him. Since Kaido puts Shanks on that pedestal, he at the very least sees Shanks the same way he saw Oden. After the Scabbards failed to beat Kaido with their Paradise Totsuka, Kaido tells them that he wouldn't have minded if they had killed him with the attack, but they weren't as strong as Oden. This gives a strong implication that Kaido views Oden as a man with raw power capable of killing him, but that's not to say that it would definitely play out that way in a one-on-one fight. This would be consistent with the names that Kaido thought of in the shadows, as Roger, Rox and Whitebeard clearly had the power capable of killing him. Shanks being able to one-shot Kid does make it seem like he has the advantage of attack power over Kaido, as even Law was able to endure a Thunder Bagua. However, it's important to note that at this point in the raid, Kaido was still heavily suppressed and wasn't using his drunk style, whereas Shanks took the situation against Kid more seriously. Personally, I do think for their low to mid-tier named attacks, Shanks probably has the edge in power, mainly because sword attacks are typically more lethal in One Piece. However, when it comes to their strongest attacks is when things become unclear. Kaido also claimed that Haki transcends all things, and the final Haki clash against Luffy proved that the stronger fighter is the one with the stronger Haki. Haki is essentially Shanks' bread and butter, so there's definitely a strong case to be made for Shanks. For now though, the only Haki ability that Shanks can use that Kaido can't is the Killer of Observation Haki, and we can't say for sure how effective it would be against someone of Kaido's caliber. With all that said though, as of this recording, there's just a bit more going in Kaido's favor in this matchup over Shanks. Kaido undoubtedly has the best durability in the series, his speed whilst using Future Sight can't be slept on, and his Haki was only overpowered by the Haki of the Sun God. I do think that Shanks can possibly prove himself to be stronger than Kaido depending on how he performs against Blackbeard. For all I know, Shanks could even show a new level of Conqueror's Haki that even Kaido isn't strong enough to use, which would flip the entire video on its head. Either way though, this is still a very close fight regardless of who you favor winning this matchup. There's nothing to suggest as of this recording that Kaido is on a whole nother level to Shanks, and there's nothing to suggest that Shanks is on a whole nother level than Kaido. Anyways, that's all for this topic, so if you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I've been the one and only Zage, and until next time.